welcome back to another episode of Doodling Through Education. For my CC students, this is Cycle 1, Week 9, History. For everyone else, that just means that we're going to be talking about Lao-Tzu and Confucius in China. We're going to talk a little bit about these men's lives as well as their contributions to Chinese culture and history. So if you haven't already, make sure you go over to doodlingthrougheducation.com. You can get your workbooks there. I've created some worksheets that go along with these videos. There's 4 worksheets per week per subject. And there's a link in the description if you need to find it there. I've also broken it up into quarterly segments. So if you need to buy them by quarter, that's fine too. I hope that helps. Without further ado, let's start doodling. Like I said, today we're going to talk about some famous men that lived around the 6th century BC in China. To begin, we're going to talk about a man named Lao-Tzu. It is unknown whether or not Lao-Tzu was just a legendary figure or if he was a real man in Chinese history, but regardless, he was very famous. He's thought either to be the author or a great contributor to the philosophy of Taoism. Like I said, if Lao-Tzu was a real man, he lived in the 6th century BC. And his name translates in English to old teacher or old man. So it is thought that he was a very wise man. Specifically, Lao-Tzu was the keeper of the archives for the royal court during the Zhou dynasty. Because of how wise he was, he understandably had many students who would follow him. Even Confucius, who we'll talk about later on, is known to appreciate Lao-Tzu's wisdom and knowledge. Lao-Tzu wrote a book named Tao Te Ching, and this translates in English to the Book of the Way and its Virtue. Even today, this book is important to the Chinese people and their culture. This is represented in their way of thinking. And for the people who follow Taoism is one of the main books. Now, Taoism believes that nature itself is the divine one, and that everyone and everything should live in harmony with nature's cycles and systems. Taoism influenced many other philosophies later on in Chinese history as well. Unfortunately, little is known about this man, which is why it is thought that he might be a legendary figure. And many historians even consider most of the stories that are told about him to just be that, legends. And so many historians have come to the conclusion that Lao-Tzu was more of a description of just a scholar or a wise man, rather than just one individual. Now, let's move on and talk about Confucius. Confucius is another man who lived around the 6th century BC, who has influenced Chinese culture today as well as in the past. This is a really amazing thing to think about, that for nearly 2,000 years, this man has influenced the principles that people have held dear to their hearts. You know, it makes me think about Jesus. It makes me think about how over 2,000 years ago, he died on a cross for our sins and completely changed history as we know it. Now, when we talk about these famous philosophers, it is very important to understand that these men are not Jesus. And although some of the things that they say might be appealing to some people and have been appealing for over 2,000 years, there is only one man who came to earth, and that's God's own Son, Jesus. So with those things in mind, let's continue talking about Confucius. Confucius's teachings are known to be based on kindness, love, and respect. He was born in 551 BC in China and was a very good student when he was younger. He studied many things, including ceremonial practices, calligraphy, mathematics, music, even archery, and he even learned how to drive a chariot. He also had a very good understanding of history and poetry. When Confucius was in his 30s, he began teaching, and when he did this, his goal was to improve society with his beliefs. He taught his students not only to gain knowledge, but how to better their character and their lives. Confucius is thought to be one of the first men in Chinese history who really believed education should be for all men and not just for the elite. He was also very interested in politics and wanted to become successful in a government position so that he could change society. And so he did just this. He held some government jobs in his 40s and 50s, but he was never able to climb that ladder into a very influential position in the government. Confucius died in 479 BC. People who follow his teachings still read the many texts that he wrote and edited. These teachings were compiled into the Analects, but this happened many years after he had already passed away. It's easy to see how Confucius and his teachings were and have become so popular in Chinese culture. Many of his beliefs really focused on a strong family loyalty and respecting elders. And still to this day, the Chinese people follow many of his teachings. And that's all we have for today. Be sure to do your homework. There are 4 worksheets that go along with this video in the history workbook. So go ahead and dive into those and try and learn more about Lao-Tzu and Confucius and their impact on Chinese society and culture. And on that note, remember to be kind, follow God's will, and take care. Bye.